Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Room. This is a show designed to make the world safe for ADHDers. I am a clinical psychologist and the parent of an ADHD adult. When we started out on this whole ADHD trail, there was no such thing as ADHD. The diagnosis hadn't been determined yet, and this was about late 80s anyway. And so we have sort of had to grow and learn with the development of the field. Now there's a lot more information, humongous amount of research has been done, stuff we just didn't know back in the day. And it makes things a lot easier, but it also it's still an issue. There's still a lot of stuff going on, and we still have people saying, "Oh man, I don't believe in that stuff," and so on. The topic I'd like to get on today a little bit is about ADHD coaching. Now, ADHD coaching is highly recommended. It's very popular. It makes the fit between the individual and their life, their position in society, their job, their school, whatever they're doing. And what you're trying to do is trying to keep them focused and and give them the sort of strategies and things that help them cope with having ADHD. Coaching has been around for a long time. I mean, coaching's been around for probably 100 years at least, but coaching for ADHD is a little more recent, just because, well, of course, we didn't really have such a thing as ADHD a long time ago. But there are some things that an ADHD coach, and this is kind of tricky because you got to get somebody who actually knows something about ADHD. You can't be having somebody who just doesn't have any familiarity with ADHD, because they will have troubles. They will have troubles handling the situation, and they've never had the experience, so it's hard to understand ADHD if you haven't lived it a little bit. I'm sure all of those of you out there who are in the midst of that right now will agree with me. There's nothing like an ADHD temper tantrum to kind of get you going, oh my goodness, what about this? And sorry about that. But we have issues with ADHD people, and people with ADHD from probably adolescence all the way through middle age at least have used coaches with some reasonable amount of success. So you find yourself an ADHD coach, and what do you want? What do you get? First of all, to be an ADHD coach, you cannot be one of these very passive sort of, well, what do you want to work on today kind of people. You've got to have an agenda. I mean, ideally, you and your client, the ADHDer, have talked to each other in some detail. You've got to know them pretty well, and especially you've gotten to know what their problem areas are. Where do they have troubles? And that's where you start working, and some things are real simple. We need to find you a planner that you'll actually use. I mean, most of these planners that are out there that the schools are giving out to your kids and are designed for people who are a little bit on the compulsive side. Odds are that's not your ADHDer. So they don't work very well. They're too picky, got to be exactly perfect, or They won't work for your ADHD. Well, they won't work for anybody unless you're real picky about how you fill them out and all that stuff. And they typically don't have any kind of color or interest kind of thing that grabs a hold of you. So you've got to you help them find something that helps their immediate problem. If it's organization, you get started on that. Eventually, you're going to talk about organization. There's no way around that. But you know them. You really start focusing on where they are, exactly what kind of problems they're having. And then an ADHD coach is always talking about the positive, is always emphasizing. I've talked about this a good bit. Your average ADHD child gets 70 critical comments a day. Well, those ADHD kids grow up into ADHD adults who all continue to get a lot of critical comments and stuff. So you will not be heard if you are critical. And, some people, you think, oh, you're in a helping relationship. Well, yeah, but some people still, they say coach and they think they should have a whistle, that does not work. So you don't emphasize negative, you emphasize the positive. There's no failure. There are opportunities to learn from situations. There are all kinds of things that didn't work out quite the way we planned, but we have to keep going. And you're going to do more by being positive than you are by being negative. And that's one of the things with ADHDers is you've got to get them moving. Okay, they've got a lot of energy, but a lot of times it's not very focused on getting ahead, doing something that gets them ahead. You really got to emphasize focus because that's kind of the main deal. And then your job as the coach is to help set up routines and strategize with them. You'd be surprised. There are a lot of people who have been struggling with ADHD for decades, never been formally diagnosed, never gotten anything, any relief, I guess, never had any kind of treatment, no medication, never had a 504 plan while they were in school. They just suffered through it, basically. The thing you want to have them understand is that there are strategies that help ADHDers. There are things that you can do that make it possible for you to get the job done, to be focused and to get whatever the task is done. There are simple things you can do that will make your life more livable. Let's just put it that way. You also are never the negative consequence. You never punish. You never threaten. You never. I can't imagine why an ADHD coach would threaten, but I did a piece a week or so ago about how punishment does not work with ADHDers, and it definitely doesn't, and it certainly doesn't work in a coaching relationship. So you have to make sure that you're being positive, that you are encouraging, that we look at things that screw up a little bit as ways to learn about stuff and how, well, that didn't work. I wonder what'll work this time, kind of thing. It's even important how you present. Okay, some people are totally unaware of how they present. I would hope that most of those people don't become coaches, but things like facial expression, tone of voice, especially when you're working with younger folks. Adults should be a little bit more toughened than that, but sometimes they're not. So you need to be aware that how you come across, if you're won't go over well with an ADHDer. You are there because you know about ADHD. You know about how some of the compensatory strategies, the things that work for people with ADHD. This stuff is hopefully time tested and not a bunch of things that you thought might work but have never really tried. So one of the things you should be doing is, well, look for people with local reputations. Wherever you are, there's always Google, Google ADHD or something, ADHD experts or some terminology like that, and you'll get hopefully a bunch of people. And then you start, just getting most coaches will do a sample sort of a freebie, session just to kind of see if you connect and think you can work together. And, that's an important thing. People I see it a lot. I just closed my clinical practice, but I used to see it all the time where people would think they didn't have a choice. I've been seeing this guy for 4 years. I hate him, but I've been seeing him for that long. So why? Why? You're not getting along. It's not helping you very much. Why don't you find a therapist that is a little more simpatico with you, if you will? And but you can do that. You are a free person, and you are a consumer, and you have a lot of rights in a market economy. Anyway, so make sure you've got a coach who you can work with, who you actually kind of look forward to the sessions, okay? Because you're not there to, to get punished or critiqued or any of that. That's not what it's about. Okay, and I think that's about it for coaching. But coaching is valuable, okay? I am a certified high performance coach, a CHPC, as we're saying, and I've been doing that for about 6 or 7 years, I guess, pretty much since the program was started. And I tailor that to ADHDers. But my primary thing is not an ad for me, but that you guys recognize that there's a need for coaching, for some help, for extra help, once you've been diagnosed and are in some kind of treatment. It's important, and then you don't learn how to compensate just because you're born with it. Okay, it doesn't work that way. I wish it did, but it doesn't. You've got to. Oh, I never thought about doing it that way. Oh yeah, that would work. That might be a pretty good idea. That's what you're looking for. Okay, I'm Terry James Gingras. This is Dr. G's ADHD Room. And again, we're trying to make the world safe for ADHDers because we need people who think outside the box. Okay, those thinkers that just think like everybody else don't change much. They're pretty good at maintaining the system the way it is, but they aren't too good at seeing that, wow, if we did it this way, that would be better. And that's what ADHDers do. They can't help themselves, as a matter of fact. That's what they do. And we need a lot of that. Okay, so I will catch you next week. You have any questions or anything? Somewhere down there you can write questions or make comments. And my website is terrygingrassphd.com. There's some extra stuff in there about that. And so feel free to get in touch with me there. And we'll catch you next week. Okay.